The Senate will come to order. I ask everyone to please rise and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Imam Mohammed Shahadullah of Dawa USA Center in Jamaica, Queens, will deliver today's invocation.
Ramadan Mubarak, Ramadan Kareem. Greeting of peace, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be upon you. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Shahru Ramadan alladhi unzila fihi al-Qur'an. Hudan lin-nas wa bayyinatin min al-huda wal-furqan. Faman shahida minkum ash-shahr falyasum. Sadaqallahul Azim. The meaning of the verse from the Holy Quran, the month of the Ramadan, the God which was the month of the Ramadan, revealed the holy book, the Quran. This Quran, the holy book, guidance for mankind and very, very clear proof of the guidance. Ameen. And Almighty God, the most gracious and most merciful, guide us, this chamber of Senate, grant us our leaders' wisdom, justice, and commitment to our common and good things. And God, bless our deliberation with cooperation and respect, ensuring all voices are heard, inspire us to support and marginalized. God, accept our all good deed and uniting us under your guidance. May your effort reflect your love, mercy, fostering a community of peace and prosperity. Amen. Again, Ramadan Mubarak. God bless us. God bless New York State. God bless United States of America and whole mankind. Amen.
Reading of the journal.
In Senate, Tuesday, March 19, 2024, the Senate met pursuant to adjournment. The journal of Monday, March 18, 2024 was read and approved. On motion, the Senate adjourned.
Without objection, the journal stands approved as read. Presentations of petitions, messages from the Assembly. Is there one? Secretary will read.
Senator Webb moves to discharge from the Committee on Environmental Conservation Assembly Bill number 8866, is substituted for the identical Senate Bill 8357, third reading calendar 541.
So ordered. Messages from the Governor, reports of standing committees, reports of select committees, communications and reports from state officers, motions and resolutions. Senator Gineris.
Good afternoon, Madam President. We have a number of important guests with us in the chamber today. I want to initially point out that Senate rules only allow one member to speak on an introduction, so Senators Stavisky, Lieu, and Sanders have graciously agreed to let Senator Comrie introduce the group of students who are with us. So please recognize Senator Comrie for an introduction.
Senator Comrie for an introduction.
Good afternoon, Madam President. I want to thank the leader and the Senate for allowing me to introduce the student government representatives from School District 29 from Southeast Queens. They are young people who are already student leaders in their school from 30 different schools around the district. This is the second year that they were brought to Albany to understand how government works from the Albany level, from the level that we're honored to represent our districts today. We have, this is a new tradition that was started by our superintendent, Dr. Crystal Bond, who's been doing a great job. I want to thank her for her constant work to deliver the highest quality education to the schools in her purview, and she's been invaluable to the Southeast Queens community. I also would be remiss if I didn't thank and acknowledge the chaperones who have taken time out, and especially Ms. Sharice Parsons, who helped coordinate today's event. I want to just let the young people know that on both sides of the House, that you are starting off as student leaders today in your respective classes. You are going to continue to be student leaders because the things that I heard from you today, the questions, the inquiries, the ideas that you have will definitely make sure that you are leaders of tomorrow. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep being leaders. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to work with your teachers so that you can be the people that you know you want to be. Making sure that you push past the negativity that's in this world, getting a great education so that I can come sit in your offices one day with a cup of tea and find out how well you're doing. So, again, thank you for giving me this opportunity, giving my colleagues, Senator Stavisky, Senator Lieu, and Senator Sanders, an opportunity to meet with you today and talk with you. And I hope that you had a chance to experience the Capitol, and I hope that you come back often as you continue in your journey. Thank you, Madam President. I would like to extend the courtesies of the House to the student leaders of District 29.
To our guests, the student leaders of District 29, I welcome you on behalf of the Senate. We extend to you the privileges and courtesies of this House. Please rise and be recognized. Senator Gineris.
Thank you, Madam President. Let's move on to previously adopted Resolution 1908 by Senator Myrie. Read that resolution's title and recognize Senator Myrie.
Secretary will read.
Resolution 1908 by Senator Myrie, congratulating the Medgar Evers College men and women's indoor track and field team upon the occasion of capturing the 2024 City University of New York Athletic Conference Indoor Track and Field Championships on February 18, 2024.
Senator Myrie on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. We are in March Madness, where the country's attention turns to college athletics, more specifically to college basketball. But today, we have the honor of recognizing the men's and women's indoor track and field team from my district, a storied institution, Medgar Evers College, the two teams that won the championship for the 2023 and 24 season. Now, this is unprecedented in many ways. First, the men's team won this championship for the first time in the school's history. And the women's team won the championship for the first time for the past 20 years. And I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize that under the new leadership of President Ramsey, who has joined us today, we now have some championships under our belt. And for track and field purposes, it is important to recognize that the CUNY championships this year were Medgar made. So I want to recognize the athletes and the officials that have joined us today. Of course, the Director of Athletics, Shatera Murphy, Head Coach Hugh Reed, Assistant Coach O'Neill Sandyford, Assistant Coach Aaron Dickens. And from the women's indoor track and field team, the most valuable performer during the championship, Aaliyah Bartholomew, who was joined by her teammates Jada Clayton, Sarah Vallon, Tori Richards, Desireth Ramirez, Deja Davis, and Nia Butler. From the men's indoor track and field team, the most valuable performer in the championship, Rupert Lord Charles, who's joined by his teammates, Krisnell Nicholas, Isaac Adekimpe, Jerome Hodges, Dante Washington, Joshua Adise, Adealu Adieme, Jaheim Johnson, and Christopher Richards. We are so proud of you. It is important that you be recognized in the upper house of the state legislature. And Madam President, if you could please afford them all privileges and courtesies of this House.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Bailey on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Senator Myrie, for bringing these incredible student athletes up to our state capitol. Senator Myrie said it all, so I won't go over it again, but to be a student athlete is incredibly impressive because it combines two very difficult things. To be a student, as you know, is your full-time job, and to be an athlete at this level of collegiate participation is also another full-time job. So you're working two unpaid full-time jobs on top of probably having a job outside of school, and you're doing it at a championship level. So you should be very proud of the work that you've done in utilizing track and field as a metaphor that no matter what's happening in the world of life, in this race of life, if you train and you practice, you will continuously run ahead of your competition. So thank you for doing what you do. We are proud of you. We appreciate you. Senator Myrie, thank you for bringing these amazing young kings and queens up here. Madam President, I vote aye on the resolution.
Thank you, Senator. To our guests, the championship team from Medgar Evers College, I welcome you on behalf of the Senate. We extend to you the privileges and courtesies of this House. Please rise and be recognized. The resolution was adopted on March 12th. Senator Gineris.
Next up, Madam President, we're going to take up two previously adopted resolutions together. Previously adopted Resolution 1616 and previously adopted Resolution 1729, both by Senator Sepulveda. Please read those resolutions' titles and recognize Senator Sepulveda.
The Secretary will read.
Resolution 1616 by Senator Sepulveda, honoring Dr. Julio Brache Arzeno posthumously for his multifaceted contributions and enduring impact in medicine, business, philanthropy, and his commitment to New York. Resolution 1729 by Senator Sepulveda, commemorating the annual Merit Student event hosted by Fundación Rica Incorporated for over 20 years on August 31st, 2023.
Senator Sepulveda on the resolutions.
Thank you, Madam President, for allowing me to speak on this resolution. Today is a day that I am filled with honor and pride because today we gather to pay tribute to an extraordinary individual, an extraordinary man, an extraordinary person, Dr. Julio A. Brache Arzeno, who sadly passed away on January 1st, 2024, at the age of 96. As we reflect on his invaluable contributions to medicine, business, philanthropy, and community engagement, it is with a profound sense of loss and respect that we honor his memory. In this moment of remembrance, it is my honor to acknowledge the presence of Dr. Brache's beloved family who join us today, beginning with his wonderful wife, who, by the way, was an assemblywoman in the Dominican Republic several years ago, and their extraordinary children, Pedro Brache, Julio, Virgilio Brache, Braulio Brache, Elsa Julia Brache Alvarez, and Carmen Maria Brache de Rios. They're all here with us, sitting with us today, and we're all full of pride to have them with us because they embody the enduring spirit of Dr. Brache's life and work. Each of them continues to uphold his visionary contributions through their respective roles within Grupo Rica and Fundación Rica, demonstrating the lasting impact of his dedication to innovation and to serve the community. Dr. Brache's pioneering spirit in founding Pasteurizadora Rica transformed the Dominican agricultural landscape, setting a new standard for corporate responsibility and social engagement. His philanthropic endeavors, particularly through the Fundación Rica, have uplifted communities by addressing essential needs in education, health, and societal development. These efforts have significantly enhanced the quality of life for countless individuals, underscoring the transformative power of committed philanthropy. Moreover, Dr. Brache's profound connection to New York manifested in his support for Dominican students, engagement in community initiatives, and active participation in cultural life has strengthened the bonds between the Dominican Republic and New York. His collaboration with organizations like City Hope International and the Major League Baseball have highlighted his commitment to leveraging influence for the greater good, benefiting numerous individuals and communities beyond geographic borders. As we honor Dr. Brache Arzeno posthumously today, we extend our deepest respect and gratitude to his family and their personal sacrifices and contributions that have allowed Dr. Brache's vision and legacy to thrive. Their presence here is a testament to the enduring power of his life's work, inspiring us all to pursue a path of service, leadership, and community engagement. Let this moment inspire us to continue Dr. Brache's remarkable legacy, ensuring that his impact on the world will be felt beyond generations to come. I want to thank Junior Martinez, Jasmine Garcia, Wenceslao Soto, Ruskin Pimentel, and Hennessy Reyes for participating in organizing this historic event. Oh, señoras y señores del Senado, hoy nos hemos reunido para rendir homenaje a una persona extraordinaria, el doctor Julio A. Brache Arseno, quien falleció el 1 de enero de este año. A reflexionar sobre sus invaluables contribuciones a la medicina, los negocios, la filantropía y compromiso comunitario, es con un profundo sentido de pérdida y respeto que honramos a su memoria. En este momento solemne, es mi honor reconocer la presencia de los queridos familiares del doctor Brache, que nos acompañan hoy en el Senado. Está su esposa, Elsa Álvarez Bonilla de Brache, que fue diputada en la República Dominicana y testigo y brazo de contención para el doctor Brache. Con nosotros también están sus hijos Pedro Brache, Julio Virgilio Brache, Braulio Brache, Elsa Julia Brache Álvarez y Carmen María Brache de Ríos, quien están aquí con nosotros hoy. Y para continuar el legado perdurable de la vida y obra del doctor Brache. Cada uno de ellos continúa sosteniendo sus visionarias contribuciones a través de sus respectivos roles dentro del Grupo RICA y la Fundación RICA, demostrando el impacto duradero de su dedicación a la innovación y al servicio comunitario. El espíritu pionero del doctor Brache a fundar pasteurizadora RICA transformó el paisaje agrícola dominicano, estableciendo un nuevo estándar de responsabilidad corporativa y compromiso social. Sus esfuerzos filantrópicos, particularmente a través de la Fundación RICA, ha elevado a las comunidades a abordar necesidades esenciales en educación, salud y el desarrollo social. Fue el primer director del Hospital Moscoso Puello y cirujano del Hospital Militar Dominicana y el Hospital Salvador Gautier. Estos esfuerzos han mejorado significativamente la calidad de vida de innumerables individuos, subrayando el poder transformador de la filantropía. Además, la profunda conexión del doctor Brache con Nueva York, manifestada en su apoyo a estudiantes dominicanos, su participación en iniciativas comunitarias y su activa participación en la vida cultural, ha fortalecido a los lazos entre la República Dominicana y Nueva York. Sus colaboraciones con organizaciones como City Hope Internacional y las Grandes Ligas han destacado su compromiso de aprovechar su influencia para el bien mayor, beneficiando a numerosos individuos y comunidades más allá de las fronteras geográficas. Al honrar hoy póstumamente al doctor Julio Brache Arseno, extendemos nuestro más profundo respeto y gratitud a su familia por sus sacrificios personales y contribuciones que han permitido que la visión y el legado del doctor Brache prosperen. Su presencia aquí es un testimonio del poder perdurable de su obra de vida, inspirándonos a todos a seguir un camino de servicio, liderazgo y compromiso comunitario. Que este momento nos inspire a continuar el notable legado del doctor Brache, asegurando que su impacto sea recordado por generaciones. Quiero darles las gracias al empresario Junior Martínez, a su socia Jasmine García, a Ruskin Pimentel, a Wenceslao Soto y a Hennessy Reyes por ayudar en organizar este evento histórico. Muchas gracias. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Jackson on the resolutions.
Thank you, Madam President. Rise regarding this resolution. In these hollow halls, we come together to celebrate the extraordinary life of Dr. Julio A. Brache Alzino, a paragon of philanthropy whose efforts have significantly elevated the well-being of countless individuals, both within our state and internationally. And Dr. Brache's commitment to fostering sustainable growth and equitable opportunities speak volumes of his character and the depth of his compassion for humanity. The founding of Fundación Rica under Dr. Brache's guidance was a milestone in charitable work, emphasizing the critical areas of education and health. His vision has not only catalyzed economic and agricultural development, but has laid down the very foundation for a future where community empowerment and mutual support are the norm. And today, as we are joined by Dr. Brache's family, their presence reinforces the narrative of sacrifice and unwavering dedication that has been the hallmark of their family's legacy. It is a testament today, as we're joined by Dr. Brache's family, their presence reinforces the narrative of sacrifice and unwavering dedication that has been the hallmark of their family's legacy. It is a testament to how Dr. Brache's work has intricately woven the fabric of our communities closer, creating a vibrant tapestry of cultural and social unity between the Dominican Republic and New York. And as we pay tribute to Dr. Brache, let us all be inspired by his magnanimous spirit. May we, too, strive to embody the virtues of empathy, foresight, and a relentless commitment to community service. Dr. Brache's legacy challenges us to carry forward the torch, philanthropy, and renew vigor and purpose. I vote aye, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Comrie on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. I also rise to support this resolution and congratulate the Brache family for continuing to honor the works of their father, to be major philanthropists, not just in their country, but also working to extend their mission into the United States also. I want to thank you for continuing that legacy, creating opportunities for minority young people, opportunities for health, opportunities for education, and even more so, opportunities for entrepreneurship to teach people how to become investors and business people. Thank you for coming to our chambers today. We're honored by your presence, and thank you for continuing your philanthropy of service. Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Bailey on the resolutions.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Senator Sepulveda, for bringing the Brache family here. So to the Brache family, thank you for coming up to our state capitol. And thank you for continuing your legacy, as has been said by many of my colleagues. It is really important, not just as legislators, but as parents, right? Like, we want our children to continue the legacy that we have set forth, whatever that is. And when you're able to excel in fields of education, healthcare and social development, that is a very strong legacy that continues to build the bridge between the Dominican Republic and the United States of America, in New York specifically. So I just want to say thank you for the work that you do and the work that you haven't done yet that will continue because of the work that you've done now. I know that was a lot, right? But it makes sense, I promise. But I just want to say, like, the spirit of philanthropy is something that we can all do, whether it's financial or just giving of your time. You and continuing that legacy is a testament to all of us that we can always do more for those in our community. So I salute you. Mucho gusto, un placer. Thank you, Madam President. I vote aye.
Senator Parker on the resolutions.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Senator Sepulveda, for bringing these resolutions to the floor and leading this important effort. Today, we convene in this august body and this chamber to honor a man of profound generosity and vision, and that's Dr. Julio A. Brache Alzino, who you've heard us mention. Now, I had planned to give all of my remarks in Spanish today, and I lost my notes. But I'm glad that Senator Sepulveda found my notes and read them word for word. So thank you, Senator Sepulveda, for delivering and thank you. It's already been said in the record, so I don't want to hold us up with a lot of unnecessary rhetoric. As you know, the Brache family may not know this, but I try to be brief and concise in my remarks on this floor. But in all seriousness, we really want to honor Dr. Brante's unparalleled philanthropic endeavors, and really just note how profoundly he has affected not just his local community and his country, but really communities across our great planet. His legacy is a beacon of how unwavering compassion and relentless pursuit of societal betterment can transform our entire world. Through his initiatives like the RICA Foundation, Dr. Brache demonstrated exemplary leadership, pioneering in sectors that are vital for our collective progress, like education, healthcare, and societal welfare. These efforts have not only propelled advancements in the Dominican Republic, but also have fostered and nurtured bonds between New York and making our societies richer and also more inclusive. As we gather today with his family, we are inspired by their enduring dedication. And his loved ones have also shown up because they also believe and have been involved in this cause of human upliftment. Their collective journey is a powerful reminder of the impact of one's family commitment and how that can have an important impact on the tapestry of all of our communities. And so in honoring Dr. Brache today, let his life and legacy be a guidepost for all of us. May we all aspire to reflect his selflessness, his strategic foresight, and his want for a better society. And we also want to just honor his deep-rooted belief in the strength of community bonds, because we understand that only together can we make our communities as good as we want them to be. So today, we rekindle our dedication to the principles that he's brought us and his family has demonstrated, and he so elegantly lived by, and may we all live by these important principles. Thank you for being here, and congratulations for all that you are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. To our guests, I welcome you on behalf of the Senate. We extend to you the privileges and courtesies of this House. Recognized. Resolution 1616 was adopted on January 17th, and Resolution 1729 was adopted on January 30th. Senator Gineris.
Thank you, Madam President. Now let's move on to previously adopted Resolution 1980 by Senator Chu. Read its title and recognize Senator Chu on the resolution.
Secretary will read.
Resolution 1980 by Senator Chu, memorializing Governor Kathy Hochul to proclaim March 23, 2024 as Pakistan American Heritage Day in the state of New York.
Senator Chu on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President, for this opportunity to speak on this resolution and introduce the Consul General of Pakistan to New York, Consul General Atozai, on the floor today. Pakistani American made up the 7th largest Asian American ethnic group in the United States. And I'm extremely proud to carry this resolution that highlights and celebrates the contributions of Pakistani Americans in New York. It is a great pride for the Pakistani American community to pass down their heritage to diversify New York. Being a proud Pakistani American means uplifting values of family, faith, and community. During this time of Ramadan, many of our Pakistani American community members are observing by fasting and giving back so much to those in and around their neighborhoods and our respective districts. New York City is home to approximately 200,000 Pakistani Americans, and their contributions to our state add to the extreme diversity and richness throughout. I'm proud to represent the neighborhoods of Bensonhurst and Bath Beach. They are home to a growing and proud Pakistani community. Just going down the street, you can see stores with traditional Pakistani clothes, community centers to engage and learn, mosques for all to observe their faith, As an immigrant community, Pakistani Americans are working to pass down their heritage and traditions to their next generation. For example, I have great partners on the ground in my district like APNA Community Center that is filling this gap and providing space for seniors and youth. Their work amplify the core value of Pakistan heritage and respect the power in the community. So I would like to take this opportunity to introduce some very special guests to this chamber: Consul General of Pakistan to New York, Consul General Atozai, and also President and founder of the American Pakistani Advocacy Group, Mr. Rashid, and also the fellow members of APAC. Madam President, if I may, please welcome our guests and extend them the privileges of the floor. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Senator Canzoneri Fitzpatrick on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Senator Chu, for bringing this resolution to the floor. I rise today in recognition of our honored guests, and I wanted just to let everybody know that the 9th Senate District is proud of the diverse heritage that makes up our community, specifically the Pakistani American population. According to a recent survey, Nassau County has the 8th highest Pakistani population in the nation outside of, in New York State, but outside of New York City. And in solidarity with our Pakistani American neighbors, who are such an integral part of our community, our county executive, Bruce Blakeman, led a relief effort to help the victims of severe flooding that plagued Pakistan in 2022. One thing I'm sure of is that people of all backgrounds will be very excited about the upcoming cricket teams coming to Nassau County, and the featured matches will include matches between India and Pakistan, which are both among the top 5 teams in the world. So thank you again, Senator Chu, and I welcome our guests as well. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Comrie on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. Also rise to support Senator Chu's resolution today to invite and acknowledge the Pakistani Americans living in New York City. I have many Pakistani Americans living in my district, in the 14th district. They also are, as in the other districts, working to become major participatory people in our district, not just in business, but in government, in education, and also in philanthropy as well. I just want to thank the Consul General for being here and all of the members that are here today. I want to continue to let folk know that this in New York, which is a dynamic state, a state that works to make sure that multiculturalism is honored and respected, that all groups that are here can make sure that their history, their legacy, and the things that they need to pass on to their children are respected on our school system as well. And I hope that we can make sure that we continue to push multiculturalism in school and a tapestry in the school system that can have a program that can educate our young people from birth to the 12th grade so that they can understand that the beauty of the state is all of the people that are working in this state, living in this state, and contributing to making sure that this state is a place where all children can grow up and be respected. I honor this resolution. Thank you, Senator Chu, for bringing it today. Thank you.
Senator Sanders on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for bringing this resolution forward. I was speaking to the great delegation that has come before us, and we were speaking of many of the issues, but I must admit I enjoyed the conversation I had with the Consul General. We were speaking of the greatness of the two places of New York State and Pakistan, and how, although Pakistan finds itself in a very difficult place in the world today, very tough neighborhood that Pakistan finds itself in, that as long as they have good citizens like the ones we had before us, they will be well represented in the U.S. I don't see my friend Farhan up there. I missed his cue. He works with me, and actually I work for him, if the truth is told. So I look forward to working with you further and having further discussions. Perhaps we'll have it in Pakistan next time. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you. Senator Rhodes on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Senator Chu, for bringing forward this resolution. And Pakistani American Heritage Day and the selection of March 23rd is not by accident. It's actually known as Pakistan Resolution Day, or Pakistan Day, and it's a significant day in the history of Pakistan that commemorates the adoption of the Lahore Resolution on March 23rd of 1940. And that day marks the beginning of the struggle for an independent state, which ultimately led to the creation of Pakistan on August 14th of 1947. More importantly, it's a reminder of the resilience, determination, and unity that define the Pakistani spirit. And every year on Pakistan Day, the entire nation comes together to celebrate the spirit of independence and pay homage to the great leaders like the Quaid al-Arazam, who played a crucial role in the formation of the country. And Pakistan Day is also a time to reflect on the progress and achievements of the country since its inception. From a struggling, newly formed nation to a nuclear power today and a developing economy, Pakistan has come a long way in the last 7 decades. They've become leaders in various fields, including science and technology, education, sports, business, not only in Pakistan, but for the over 600,000 Pakistani Americans who call America now their home, the incredible contributions that they have made to this nation as well. Let us find today, then, inspiration in the timeless words of Muhammad Iqbal, a great thinker in Pakistan who urged us to envision a better tomorrow amidst today's challenges. And let's use this as an opportunity to reaffirm our commitment to democracy, growth, tolerance, and stability, realizing the vision of the Quaid-e-Azam, one of the great founders of Pakistan. And so to our guests here in the chamber, to our Consul General, and to all Pakistanis across New York State and in the 5th Senate District, I wish you a very happy Pakistan Day and Pakistan American Heritage Day here in the great state of New York. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Liu on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to thank Senator Chu for bringing this important resolution, and I agree with everything everybody has said already. I also want to take an opportunity to welcome our new Consul General from Pakistan to New York. Welcome. You're going to see a very vibrant Pakistani American community here in New York. I want to say hello to my friends from APAG, Ali, waiting for the date for iftar. And with that, I think not only has this organization been completely intertwined into the fabric of our communities. During the pandemic, they fed people, they had social programs, they did so much for the growing Pakistani community and beyond. And of course, they are also very influential in political circles. Probably, Madam President, we may see the first Pakistani American elected official within the ranks of these individuals standing right there. And you know, I hope to see the first Pakistani American state senator soon, hopefully from Sanders District. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Thank you. To our guests, Consul General and the members of the Pakistani delegation, I welcome you on behalf of the Senate. We extend to you the privileges and courtesies of this House. Please rise and be recognized. The resolution was adopted on March 19th. Senator Gineris.
Madam President, the various sponsors of today's resolutions would like to open them for co-sponsorship.
The resolutions are open for co-sponsorship. Should you choose not to be a co-sponsor, please notify the desk. Senator Gineris.
Please take up the calendar.
Secretary will read.
Calendar number 122, Senate Print 1137A by Senator Sanders, an act to amend the banking law.
Hold on. Secretary will read.
Calendar number 122, Senate Print 1137A by Senator Sanders, an act to amend the banking law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Sewell-Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 126, Senate Print 1179 by Senator Harkam, an act to amend the Environmental Conservation Law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Sewell-Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 61. Oh, excuse me. In relation to calendar 126, voted in the negative are Senators Kanzeri Fitzpatrick and White. Ayes 59, nays 2.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 164, Senate Print 1001 by Senator Holman Siegel, an act to amend the Public Health Law.
Read the last section.
Section 6 is actually take effect on the 1st of January.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Sewell-Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 319, Senate Print 6808 by Senator Mannion, an act to amend the Vehicle and Traffic Law.
Read the last section.
Section 13, this act shall take effect on the 180th day, it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Sewell-Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 346, Senate Print 151 by Senator Gianaris, an act to amend the Criminal Procedure Law.
Read the last section.
Section 4, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Sewell-Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 346, those senators voted in the negative are Senators Ashby, Borrello, Kanzeri Fitzpatrick, Felder, Gallivan, Griffo, Helming, Lanza, Martins, Matera, Murray, Oberacker, O'Mara, Ort, Palumbo, Rhodes, Rollison, Steck, Tedisco, Weber, and White. Ayes 40, nays 21.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 394, Senate Print 622 by Senator Kavanaugh, an act to amend the executive law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect on the 80th day, it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Sewell-Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 427, Senate Print 2088 by Senator Kavanaugh, an act to amend the General Obligations Law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Sewell-Cousins, White.
Bless you. Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 427, those senators voted in the negative are Senators Ashby, Borrello, Kanzeri Fitzpatrick, Gallivan, Griffo, Helming, Lanza, Martins, Matera, Murray, Oberacker, O'Mara, Ort, Palumbo, Rhodes, Rollison, Skoufis, Steck, Tedisco, Weber, and White. Ayes 40, nays 21.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 437, Senate Print 1974A by Senator Ramos, an act to amend the Workers' Compensation Law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect on the 30th day, it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Sewell-Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 437, voted in the negative, Senator Lanza. Ayes 60, nays 1.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 467, Senate Print 1176 by Senator Harkam, an act to amend Chapter 606 of the law of 2006.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Sewell-Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 526, Senate Print 4342 by Senator Sepulveda, an act to amend the Surrogate Courts Procedure Act.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect on the 30th day, it shall become law.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Sewell-Cousins, White.
Senator Canzoneri Fitzpatrick to explain her vote.
Thank you, Madam President. This bill allows someone who's not related to a decedent to become the administrator of an estate. And my concern is that there's no guarantee that this person will act in the best interests of that family. There's no bond that is posted, and this person could be completely unrelated. We do have a public administrator in every county that is a person, a state official that steps in to handle estates when there is no family that is qualified. So for those reasons, I am voting in the negative. Thank you.
Senator Canzoneri Fitzpatrick to be recorded in the negative. Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 526, those senators voted in the negative are Senators Morello, Canzoneri Fitzpatrick, Griffo, Helming, Lanza, Martins, Matera, Murray, Oberacker, O'Mara, Ort, Palumbo, Rhodes, Steck, Tedisco, Weber, and White. Ayes 44, nays 17.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 541, Assembly number 8866 by Assembly Member Kellers, enact to amend the Environmental Conservation Law.
Laid aside.
Calendar number 551, Senate Print 7374 by Senator Scarcella Stanton, enact to amend the Executive Law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Dabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Sewell Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 557, Senate Print 1478 by Senator Hinchey, enact in relation to directing the Commissioner of Health to conduct a study of the delivery of services to individuals with traumatic brain injury.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Dabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Sewell Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 570, Senate Print 1468 by Senator Breslin, enact to amend the insurance law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Dabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Sewell Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 636, Senate Print 1918 by Senator May, enact to amend the Environmental Conservation Law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Sewell Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 636, those senators voted in the negative are Senators Ashby, Borrello, Canzoneri Fitzpatrick, Griffo, Helming, Lanza, Martins, Matera, Murray, O'Mara, Rhodes, Rollison, Steck, Tedisco, Weber, and White. Ayes 45, nays 16.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 654, Senate Print 1863 by Senator Brute, enact to amend the education law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect on the 90th day, shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Sewell Cousins, White.
Senator Brooke to explain her vote.
Thank you, Madam President. I wanted to share with everyone, because the way we came to this bill today is really representative of how we do work here in Albany. Oftentimes we have advocacy groups, we have youth groups come to Albany, learn about the legislature, see how we do everything here, and one of those groups is a really big group of foster youth who often come. And one of the things I learned in conversations with some of these young people is that a large percentage of young people who go through the foster system, in fact 63% of them, do wish to go to college, but don't believe that there are resources in place for them to be able to do that. And for those who actually do enroll in these schools, only 3 to 11% actually end up graduating with their degree. Now, part of the reason this happens is because they're not aware of the actually ample resources that we in New York State have for young people who have gone through the foster system or the child welfare system. So this bill is actually quite simple in nature. The idea is that we want to make sure more young people and administrators at both SUNY and CUNYs have this information and that it's conspicuously displayed so that more of these young people who want to obtain their degrees, who want to enter the workforce, and who need these resources can actually be matched with them. So thank you to the Senate. This has passed before, and I'm excited that it's being passed again today, and I proudly vote aye.
Senator Brooke to be recorded in the affirmative. Announce the results.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 655, Senate Print 2208 by Senator Liu, an act to amend the education law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Giannaris Kruger, Ort, Sewell Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed. Senator Gianaris, that completes the reading of the today's calendar.
Thank you, Madam President. Before we move to the controversial calendar, there's a report of the Finance Committee at the desk with some nominations. Can we please take that up now?
The Secretary will read.
Senator Kruger from the Committee on Finance reports the following nominations as members of the Metropolitan Transportation Authority: Samuel Chu, Mira Joshi, Daniel Garodnick, Mark Herbst, Michael Fleischer. As a member of the Niagara Frontier Transportation Authority, Trinica Cusack Fields. As a member of the Rochester Genesee Regional Transportation Authority, John A. Trott. As a member of the Capital District Transportation Authority, Jacqueline McDonald.
I move to accept the report of the Finance Committee and ask that you recognize Senator Kruger.
All those in favor of accepting the report of the Finance Committee signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The report of the Finance Committee is accepted. Senator Kruger,
Thank you
on the nominations.
Thank you, Madam President. So yesterday, we had 3 committees meet together: the Corporations and Authorities Committee, chaired by Senator Comrie, the Transportation Committee, chaired by Senator Kennedy, and the Finance Committee, chaired by myself. So we did 3 committee meetings in one. We had extensive questioning of the 5 MTA candidates. We did not have the 3 other authority candidates come in person. The questions were extensive, important, and we felt that all of the candidates submitted by the governor were absolutely qualified to take their place in the first case for the first 5 to the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, the 12-county MTA, and as well for the 3 nominees representing 3 upstate transportation authorities. I don't think anyone has any doubts how important public transportation is to everyone here in New York State, and how important it is to have excellent representatives on the boards doing their best for us all. So I'm very glad that we're able to bring them here today, and certainly urge all of my colleagues to vote yes for them. Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Skoufis.
Thank you very much, Madam President. While I have no objection to the 3 nominees for authorities that are not the MTA, there is only 1 vote we're allowed to cast here as a package, and so I will, on their nominations, regrettably be voting no because of my opposition to the 5 MTA board nominees. And as Senator Kruger noted, we had 3 hours, or I think over 3 hours, of questions and answers from these nominees. It was a good and robust meeting, but I was disappointed that all 5 of the nominees that came before us and that are before us here today were unabashed in their answers to my questions and concerns related to congestion pricing. And specifically, there was some agreement. Whether we like or dislike congestion pricing, we at least all agreed that the goal of congestion pricing was to shift people away from their vehicles and onto MTA mass transit. Now, that works well and fine in many places within the MTA region, but it does not work if there is no MTA mass transit. Where I am in Orange County, there is, I think objectively speaking, a sorely inadequate service, and I raised this with a number of nominees. The last two trains available at the Harriman train station, which is the most heavily trafficked station in Orange County, just down the road from Woodbury Common. The final 2 stops each and every day from Orange County to New Jersey, where they have to transfer to get into Manhattan, are 3:57 p.m. and then 10:30 p.m. There's a 6-hour and 33-minute gap between trains to travel from Orange County, eventually with a transfer to Penn Station in Manhattan. And I raised the question, if you want to get into Manhattan within those 6.5 hours and there's no train, what do? You have to drive. And so how is it fair that my constituents with no alternative available to them must pay $30, $15 on the George Washington Bridge, $15 into the congestion pricing zone, not to mention probably around $20 in gas round trip, and there'd be no accommodation in the MTA or in the recommendations to the MTA for congestion pricing. Each and every one of these nominees, quite frankly, simply did not care. They, in my characterization, were happy to sacrifice at the altar of congestion pricing Orange County and my constituents. And so I'll be voting no on all of them. I continue to implore the MTA to do the right thing, amend these recommendations, and for all the transit deserts in the region, provide reasonable accommodations. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Martinez on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. I also rise today in opposition to the slate of nominees to the MTA board, specifically when one of the individuals being confirmed today is from Long Island and supported congestion pricing. Congestion pricing, as we know, will have a detrimental effect on my constituents that I represent on Long Island, particularly those that travel daily from Suffolk County into Manhattan, including our first responders, our teachers, our healthcare providers, and our union workers. Congestion pricing imposes additional financial burden on our hardworking individuals who rely on affordable transportation. Additionally, though, I would like to acknowledge one of the nominees who was not on the MTA board when this vote took place, and I appreciate his efforts on Long Island, and that is Mark Herbst. He is the head of the Long Island Contractor Association. His leadership in the transportation industry has made such great improvements in Suffolk County alone. It is commendable what he has done. I truly respect him. It's unfortunate that we had to vote on a slate of nominees and not individually, because Mark Herbst would have had my complete support, but I, in good conscience, cannot vote for a slate of nominees who support congestion pricing, who at the end of the day will hurt my constituencies. For that reason, Madam President, I vote in negative.
Senator Martinez in the negative. Senator Comrie on the nominations.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise today to thank all of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle for the debate and questioning of the candidates that were brought before us to serve on the MTA board and the other regional authorities. I support all of the candidates for service. I think their records individually are extensive and are impressive. I think they have an ability to bring a new direction to the MTA, facing the difficulties that we have to face. I won't go into all of the details, but everything from electrification in the northern end of Long Island to taking care of the west of the Hudson that Senator Skoufis so passionately spoke about, dealing with this congestion pricing that we have to figure out and get right. I think that we have a group of nominees that can do the job. They heard from members yesterday from both sides of the aisle about these issues. They understand that they have to do something about it. The nominees all have extensive history in construction, and they all moved to talk about the need for transparency, ensuring that the system can work better, that we can lower construction costs, which are the highest anywhere in the nation, that we can also make sure that we have an opportunity to improve transportation, to do through running through the most important station in the country, Penn Station, so that a person could ride from the Hamptons to Buffalo or to Albany, which is important for our economy. I have concerns and will continue to raise concerns about transparency and the ability of the MTA to ensure that the ridership is safe, that the ridership can be better, that we can have a fair fare system that would make it easier for everyone, and I hope that we can continue to work in both sides to make sure that we have an MTA that can service our community. But these 5 candidates from the MTA all have an extensive background and create opportunities to lift the MTA to better heights. I vote aye, Madam President.
Senator Comrie to be recorded in the affirmative. Senator Weber to explain his.
Thank you, Madam President. Congestion pricing is a dumpster fire. Let's be honest. The residents of Rockland County have been shortchanged by the MTA for generations. We don't have a one-seat ride into the city. A lot of our residents have to drive into the city. So we have to vote on one slate of candidates, and I'm going to speak in for one voice of the residents of Rockland County by voting no on this slate of candidates because we need to send a message. This body voted for congestion pricing. Before I got here, I would have voted no if I were here. This body has the opportunity to get rid of congestion pricing. I guess we choose not to as a body. I hope we will consider doing that before the end of the session. I vote no.
Senator Weber to be recorded in the negative. Senator Borrello.
Thank you, Madam President. You know, again, I have to voice my concern with having to group all these important positions into one vote. I will remind everyone last year I brought up the fact that when the DEC wants to protect a species of fish, we have to vote on each individual species of fish as a different bill, but yet we are going to continue to group these important nominees. So I'll be forced to vote no, even though there are some I think that are qualified. But I want to speak a moment on the MTA. You know, New York State taxpayers, even ones that never use the MTA ever in their entire life, subsidize the MTA to the tune of $1 billion every year just for operating expenses. That doesn't include the billions for capital expenses that New York State taxpayers also subsidize. And what does that $1 billion actually go towards? Well, $700 million of it this year is going to go towards fare evasion, people that dodge fares. And there's really no appetite to do anything about that. We're not going to, provide a criminal penalty to someone that isn't going to pay the fare. That's number one. $700 million this year alone. Then there's hundreds of millions of dollars a year for no-show positions, where the MTA admits there are possibly thousands of positions that they can't prove somebody actually shows up to work for every day, but yet still draws a paycheck. Then, of course, there's all of the overtime fraud that we've seen through the MTA. So the money that the New York State taxpayers supply to the MTA goes almost exclusively to cover fraud, waste, fraud, and abuse. That's what the money that New York State taxpayers supplies to the MTA for. It's a mess. It needs to be fixed. And I don't know if these folks are up to the task or not. I hope they are. But at this moment, dumpster fire is probably a good way to describe the entire MTA. So I'll be voting no. Thank you.
Senator Borrello to be recorded in the negative. Senator Scarcella-Spanton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also am rising today to voice my opposition to this slate of candidates for the MTA board. Unfortunately, congestion pricing not only is going to hurt the pockets of my constituents, but their own federal environmental impact studies show that the pollutants are going to rise significantly, both in portions of Staten Island and in portions of the Bronx as well. So not only is this bad for them financially, but it's also bad for their health. We already have some of the highest asthma rates on Staten Island. We have one of the highest childhood cancer rates on Staten Island, and I cannot in good faith support these candidates, so I vote no. Thank you.
Senator Scarcella-Spanton to be recorded in the negative. Senator Martins.
Thank you, Madam President. To borrow a phrase from Senator Weber, congestion pricing is a dumpster fire. But that isn't our task here today, right? We're not here to substitute our opinions for those of others. These are appointments, and our job, I believe, is to determine whether or not people are qualified. If they are qualified to occupy those positions, there's a certain amount of deference that this body has historically given to those people who are making those appointments. So I hear people standing up today using this vote as a referendum on congestion pricing, the very same people who were here in 2019 and actually voted for congestion pricing, Madam President, which is shocking to me because rather than taking it out on nominees who were appointed by people, whether it's county executives or the governor herself, we're dealing with an issue by not holding ourselves to that same standard, which again, everyone can actually make that decision for themselves, but there are people who have stood up here and said they're going to cast a negative vote for people who are possibly qualified, but not because of their qualifications, because of an issue that they themselves put in harm's way and put our constituents in harm's way. So, Madam President, if this vote is about congestion pricing, then I vote no. Because if that is the standard that we're going to use today, then I will vote no on these nominees if that's the standard we're going to use in this chamber. Historically, it hasn't been. But because that's the standard
that has been placed before us today. Madam President, I vote no.
Senator Martins to be recorded in the negative. Senator Canzoneri Fitzpatrick.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to explain my vote against these nominations as well. I'm disappointed to hear that despite a hearing was held with 3 committees that some of the nominees didn't take the time to appear and be interviewed. I think that's troubling. I do think, though, that the MTA has failed in many ways to my constituents, the constituents of Nassau County. They failed to answer pleas by my mayors and my local government to be a good neighbor, to clean up after themselves. There's constant mismanagement, and I'm told repeatedly that there's just not enough funding to do the things that they should do to be good neighbors, put up fences, clean up garbage, put up safety fences because they back onto schoolyards where small children play. And I'm frustrated that the MTA doesn't have the money for these things, and now we're putting in congestion pricing under the guise of trying to have a cleaner environment. But really, it's about the money. And of course it's about the money because the MTA put into their budget $1 billion that they're going to gain from congestion pricing, banking on the fact that there's so many people from both Rockland County, Nassau County that will have to drive. So I'm frustrated to hear that all of the candidates are absolutely in favor of congestion pricing and don't come up with an alternative to the financial crisis that the MTA is currently in. So for those reasons, Madam President, I'll be a nay.
Senator Canzoneri Fitzpatrick to be recorded in the negative. Senator Lanza.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise in opposition to these nominations. Congestion pricing from its inception has been a lie. It is why I've opposed it, it's why I debated against it on this floor, and it's why I voted against it. First, it was about traffic. That's how it all started. Traffic in one area of New York City. Doesn't matter that it takes a half hour to go 5 blocks in the Bronx, or 7 blocks in Staten Island, or even longer to drive a few blocks in Brooklyn. It doesn't care, and the people who support it don't care, that it will actually cause more congestion everywhere but the congestion pricing district. Some of the supporters and advocates for it realized that people were onto them. How could they argue that it was about traffic or congestion when, in fact, traffic would increase everywhere else? So they changed it. They said it was about pollution, that somehow congestion pricing, which is nothing more than a punitive tax, was going to reduce pollution. As my colleague and good friend from Staten Island just stated, the MTA's own study has concluded that congestion pricing will increase pollution. It'll just push it to the Bronx and to Staten Island and to parts of New Jersey. So again, they're lying. Where the MTA chairman, president, a few weeks ago, talk about the fact that crime is only a perception that people have about the MTA and the subway system. It's really not real. It's not that bad. We have 4 million riders. If we were a city, it would be a very good, safe city. 3 weeks later, the governor sent the Guard, the state police, and God knows who else is going to be needed to address not a perception, but a travesty. And congestion pricing is no more insulting to any other place in the state of New York than it is to the people of Staten Island that Senator Scarcella, Spanton, and myself represents. Here we are, part of New York City. We pay New York City taxes. When I listened to Senator Skoufis, I thought for a moment he had moved to Staten Island and was representing Staten Island. His plight is our plight. I was with him until he said that there's a 5-hour gap between the train that you get a 6-hour. I got you beat. A 6-hour gap between one train and the other train to get to Manhattan. There is a never-ending gap on Staten Island. You cannot get on a train on Staten Island and find yourself in Manhattan. Nowhere has the MTA failed in its mission than it has to the people of Staten Island. 550,000 people. Nowhere. And yet, because of their failures, whereas a Staten Islander, you must choose to get in a car, to go to market, to get your kids to school, to go to work. Maybe once in a while go into Manhattan. After all, it's our city. And then after putting us in our cars, they tell us you can't take it into Manhattan, your city. Forget about what this does to businesses. Forget about what this does to families all across the city. I'll let my colleagues talk about outside the city. But this is an insult, it's an outrage, it's a crime, it's a lie. I can't vote for anyone that has anything to do with the MTA. And I will not until we figure out a way to go from the top down and the bottom up and rework what is happening in the MTA. Because there are things we agree about in this body, there are things we disagree about. But I can tell you there's one thing that unites us all. Our residents in every district we represent believe the MTA is doing a terrible job in the state of New York. I vote no, Madam President.
Senator Lanza to be recorded in the negative. Senator Rhodes.
Madam President, I've said it on this floor before, and I've said it publicly numerous times. To me, the MTA stands for money thrown away. Because that's what we do. Every single year, we have a budget. Every single year, the MTA runs deficits. It's just differing amounts. And every year, the one thing that we need to do to try and figure out where that money is going, conducting a forensic audit of the MTA, forcing them to open their books and disclose where it is this money is going and why, year after year after year, there continues to be a shortfall of hundreds of millions, billions of dollars. That doesn't happen. Instead, we get congestion pricing. And I know that these nominees are not about congestion pricing, but you know what? It really is. And for somebody who just had the honor of coming to the State Senate last year and didn't have an opportunity to debate congestion pricing in 2019, as many in this chamber did have the opportunity to do, it's my opportunity to talk about what an outrage it is. Because this was never a conversation about the environment. This was never about a conversation about trying to reduce congestion. Because the starting point for this was an amount of money. And the single greatest thing to me that demonstrates that this had nothing to do with the environment or reducing congestion is the fact that while we're talking about making it more expensive for people to go to work, for people to conduct business, for people to go to visit family, for people to go to visit their doctor, while we're talking about making it more expensive to drive anywhere south of 60th Street, what did they do? If we wanted to encourage people to actually take mass transit, to actually help solve the problem, they made it more expensive to take the bus, more expensive to take the Long Island Railroad, more expensive to take the subways, raising the fares on each. So this was entirely about money. And the notion that the MTA is now having their public comment period, which just ended, so that the public could finally be heard about congestion pricing, while all of the charging units are already up. It's a sham. It's been a sham from day one. And I cannot support the continuation of this sham. And that's why I'll be voting no on these nominees as a block. Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Rhodes to be recorded in the negative. Senator Gineris to close.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to read an excerpt from the Staten Island Advance. Insisting that the plan is the borough's best hope of getting substantial money for more mass transit, State Senator Andrew Lanza told the Advance yesterday he is endorsing the ambitious, controversial proposal. Goes on to say, and I quote from my good colleague here, if I could find the right place in this article. Here it is. This is the first quote. This is the first real hope that I think we've seen over the last 25 years for real money. It would be irresponsible to ignore this most valuable option I've seen for bringing these monies and these improvements for Staten Island. Unquote. I vote yes, Madam President.
Senator Gineris to be recorded. Senator Gineris to be recorded in the affirmative. Senator Lanza, why do you rise?
Point of privilege. Senator Gineris mentioned me. Madam President, I do not support congestion pricing. I voted against congestion pricing on this floor. I debated congestion pricing on this floor. I've opposed it from its inception. That quote in no way, shape, or form reflects where I've been and am on congestion pricing. There was a proposal. Mike Bloomberg at the time wanted to put out the idea of congestion pricing. Mike Bloomberg at the time said and was fashioning a bill that would hold Staten Island completely harmless, zero charge, and in addition, if he promised congestion pricing were ever to come to pass, that not only would Staten Island be held harmless, no charge, no payment, but he would take some of the money and he would give it to Staten Island, who he acknowledged had been left in the dust and had been abandoned by the rest of the city and the MTA. So what that is talking about is not congestion pricing as we are talking about it today.
Senator Lanza in the negative. Announce the results. Sorry, call the roll.
Dabo, Gineris, Kruger, Ort, Sewell Cousins, White. Got it all.
Announce the results.
In relation to the nominations, those senators voting in the negative are Senators Ashby, Morello, Canzone Fitzpatrick, Galvin, Griffo, Helming, Lanza, Martinez, Martins, Matera, Murray, Oberacker, O'Mara, Ort, Palumbo, Rhodes, Rollison, Scarcella Spanton, Skoufis, Steck, Tedisco, Weber, and White. Ayes 39, nays 23.
The bill is, the nominations has been confirmed. Senator Gineris.
Congratulations to the nominees, Madam President.
Congratulations to the nominees.
Let's move on to the controversial calendar, please.
The Secretary will ring the bell. Secretary will read.
Calendar number 541, Assembly number 8866 by Assemblymember Kellis, enactment of the Environmental Conservation Law.
Senator Borrello, why do you rise?
Madam President, would the sponsor yield for a question?
Through you, Madam President, I will yield.
The sponsor yields.
Yes, through you, Madam President. First of all, Senator Webb, excuse my back as I speak into the microphone.
We're
my
still
question.
friends. For now.
So this bill obviously would ban a a new potential type of hydraulic fracturing to extract gas from the earth, from the land. Can you explain how this process of extracting gas with CO2 is done?
So through you, Madam President, this currently is not a practice that is being done, it's being proposed. And one of the things that we do know is that supercritical CO2 has many hazards associated with it. And so what this law, what this bill will do rather, is to close the loophole on the existing law that we have which bans hydrofracking.
To continue to yield.
Does the sponsor yield?
I will yield.
The sponsor yields.
So you're saying there are hazards with using CO2 to extract natural gas from shale. Is that correct?
That is correct, through you, Madam President, that there are hazards associated with supercritical CO2 as an agent with regards to extraction.
Madam President, sponsor continue to yield.
Does the sponsor yield?
Yes, I will.
The sponsor yields.
Has the DEC weighed in on those hazards? Do we have any information from DEC?
You, Madam President, there is limited data with regards to this issue. And in fact, when this issue was brought to my attention in my district, we reached out to the DEC to find out if, in fact, they had been contacted by Southern Tier Solutions with regards to their proposed plans around CO2 fracking. And up until this week, they have yet to receive any requests or any queries by this company.
Does the sponsor continue to yield?
Does the sponsor yield?
Yes, I do.
The sponsor yields.
So if I'm doing something that's not currently regulated by the DEC, why would I contact them and ask them for their advice?
President, for anything related to the environment, it is my understanding that our state authorities, this is part of their job, and so any new company or existing company would have to contact the proper authorities.
Sponsor continue to yield.
Does the sponsor yield?
Yes, I will.
The sponsor yields.
So can you tell me the difference between using CO2 for hydraulic fracturing and the traditional form of hydraulic fracturing, also known as fracking? Can you tell me the difference between those two processes?
Can you repeat your question?
All right, I'm speaking to the microphone this time. Can you explain to me what the difference is between using CO2 to extract gas versus using traditional forms of hydraulic fracturing using water and chemicals?
Through you, Madam President, it is a similar process, except it's a different substance that is proposed to be used, supercritical CO2, but the process is very similar. And again, this is a practice that we have already banned here in New York State, and as I've said earlier, this bill is proposed to actually close a loophole on a practice that already is banned in our state. And that also has very proven research records that demonstrates the not only environmental hazards, but public health impacts, negatively speaking, with regards to this practice.
Madam President, sponsor continue to yield.
Does the sponsor yield?
Yes, I'll
The
continue
sponsor
to yield.
yields.
You're saying that traditional fracking has hazards, documented hazards, but there's no documented hazards with this form of fracking because it hasn't been done. Isn't that correct?
Madam President, what we do know about supercritical CO2 is that it is a volatile substance. This type of practice, utilizing this particular material, will lead to issues with respect to corrosive. It's corrosive in nature. It is also something that is very volatile. And so again, as I said earlier, that it is important that we close the loophole with respect to this proposed practice before any further issues ensue.
Continue to yield.
Does the sponsor yield?
Yes, I do.
The sponsor yields.
So you're maintaining then that CO2 is a volatile chemical. So you're saying we don't use any volatile chemicals, and when we do anything, whether it's mining or exploration or any other type of drilling, there's no corrosive or volatile chemicals that are being used, and is that what you're claiming? But this would be?
You, Madam President, fracking, as we know, has significant not only issues when it pertains to water pollution, but also air pollution. And so this company that is proposing this practice has not proposed any environmental mitigation plans of the sort with regards to their proposed plans for CO2 fracking.
Madam President, sponsor continue to yield.
Does the sponsor yield?
Yes.
The sponsor yields.
Well, with all due respect, you're proposing to ban the whole process, so why would they have to offer anything? The DEC would have to come and promulgate regulations if they were given the opportunity to oversee the testing of this, which is really what this Southern Tier CO2 solution, Clean Energy Solutions is looking to do. They're actually looking to use this as a pilot program. So how can they be offering anything as far as safety recommendations when the only thing that's been offered from the state of New York so far is a ban?
So through you, Madam President, we know from when hydrofracking was proposed 10 years ago, research and studies have been done to show that there are environmental and health hazards, and that even with this proposed CO2 fracking, we do know that supercritical CO2, again, as I said earlier, is a highly volatile substance. It is also a substance that is corrosive. When it hits the water, it most certainly creates issues as it pertains to environmental toxins and other issues.
You yield.
Does the sponsor yield?
Yes, I will.
The sponsor yields.
Well, we use a lot of volatile substances in many processes, many manufacturing processes, drilling, exploration for all kinds of things. So without having the DEC actually weigh in, how would we know that this is going to be potentially hazardous? It's a closed-loop system that they're using.
Madam President, DEC did weigh in on this issue 10 years ago, and what they found is that there are no mitigation processes that will be able to address the negative impacts of hydrofracking.
Sponsor continue to yield.
The sponsor yield?
Yes, I do.
The sponsor yields.
Well, again, they weighed in on traditional hydrofracking, but was also banned, by the way, by the governor under executive order. There was no actual due diligence by the DEC. There was no scientific evaluations whatsoever. So how can you compare this, which is using a completely different process, using a completely different chemical, how could you compare that to what we've already banned?
Through you, Madam President, the DEC actually provided an environmental impact statement back in 2015 with regards to issues associated with hydrofracking. And again, when we banned hydrofracking years ago, this particular method was not on the table with pertaining to CO2, supercritical CO2. And like with any developments and with any legislation that we most certainly pass, we intend for it to be comprehensive. And in this case, like with other laws, we must most certainly close loopholes. And so the DEC has, again, as I said earlier, made it very clear in their environmental impact statement that hydrofracking in any form or fashion, there are no mitigation methods that can address the impacts to our environment and most certainly to public health.
Madam President, sponsor continue to yield.
Does the sponsor yield?
Yes, I do.
The sponsor yields.
If I'm reading correctly the bill, you address the fact that essentially this is about extracting natural gas to be burned in power plants, and you're opposed to that as a part of this ban. Is that correct? Are you opposed to using natural gas as a form of fuel here in New York State?
Through you, Madam President, this bill only pertains to the proposal for CO2 hydrofracking.
Madam President, on the bill.
Senator Barello on the bill.
Senator Webb, thank you for the engagement today. You know, I represent portions of the southern tier, as does Senator Webb, Senator O'Mara. The southern tier runs along the border of the state of Pennsylvania. The state of Pennsylvania has actually been hydrofracking for years. It has been an economic boon that the southern tier of New York has not been able to participate in because of the ban. We talk about negative health impacts, so forth, but it's literally being done literally feet away from New York State. In some cases, literally right on the border of New York State, and yet, you know, we haven't seen those health impacts, nothing documented that I'm aware of, but yet, if there were any negative impacts, we would be suffering those impacts without any of the economic benefit of that fracking. Now, we were heard during the last debate about fracking that there were these super secret chemical cocktails that were used to extract natural gas from shale, and they were going to be dangerous and hazardous, so on and so forth. So now we have a company that's come forward with a process to use CO2. CO2 that will be pumped into the ground and extract the gas. Forced into the ground, the gas comes out. CO2 is essentially a natural product. And that's why, and certainly much cleaner, without those proprietary secret chemical cocktails that we heard about before. For those of you that are concerned about the impacts of CO2, let me remind you, when you go to a fast food restaurant and they hand you a cup, you go over to the fountain, you push the thing, that's CO2 being forced through a liquid into your cup and then you're drinking it. That's what CO2 is. Everybody has done that. But now we're going to say, without any scientific evidence, without any due diligence, without any studying, we're going to shut down once again the opportunity for the people of the southern tier to be able to extract gas, in this case, potentially without any harmful impacts, without any of those secret chemical cocktails. And we're going to deny those landowners that opportunity. And we're going to say it's because we're concerned about the potential public health impacts. Well, that's really kind of hypocritical, because I have heard a lot of potential, not potential, but real public health impacts from renewable energy projects. Public health impacts from wind turbines. Public health impacts from runoff, from solar panels. Public health impacts in several other areas, the environment. We're killing off endangered species. We're actually allowing American bald eagles to be beheaded by the thousands across this country because we're saving the planet with renewable energy. So it's okay to do all that. It's okay to contaminate water supplies. It's okay to have a negative impact on people's health with things like infrasound. It's okay because we're saving the planet here. Now we have an opportunity to do something without any evidence that there actually is a negative health impact, but we don't like that. We don't like natural gas now, so we're going to ban it. And we're going to ban the ability to actually extract it safely, potentially even cheaper, and giving that opportunity to all those folks in the southern tier that lost out on those job opportunities when we banned it years ago. So we're not going to do that. We're going to shut our eyes, listen to the most extreme advocates, and say, this is bad, we're going to ban it. That's not fair to the people of the southern tier, my constituents, the people that lost out in the past. They have an opportunity again, and now it's going to be yanked away from them for political reasons. So I'll be voting no on this bill. Thank you.
Are there any other senators wishing to be heard? Senator O'Mara.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Just on the bill, briefly.
Senator O'Mara on the bill.
Following Senator Borello's comments, and the district that I represent largely runs across the Pennsylvania border, the southern tier. There are vast reserves of natural gas throughout the Marcellus and Utica Shale across New York State, across the counties of Steuben, Chemung, Tioga, Broome, Delaware. The same reserves that are just south of the border in the northern tier of Pennsylvania, where those citizens have gained immensely from the production and recovery of natural gas. Natural gas that, well, half of this room, more than half, doesn't think we're going to use. Natural gas is going to be a part of our lives, of our energy, of our manufacturing in this country for the rest of our lives, like it or not. We can't continue to overlook the better because we want the perfect. And that's what we're doing with this. That's what we're doing with the CLCPA and the Climate Action Council goals that have come out with no plan. We've seen the result of planning in energy and emissions of these majorities with the closing of Indian Point Nuclear Plant that has resulted since its closing in an increase of carbon emissions by over 40%, right into the environmental justice communities that you all stand up and argue and fight for every day in this chamber. It makes no sense. And yet we're not allowed to pursue cleaner burning, more efficient natural gas that we have a wealth of under our feet in the southern tier. Farmers, landowners in the northern tier of Pennsylvania have obtained immense wealth from the recovery of natural gas. Our farmers, our landowners in the southern tier of Pennsylvania have been denied that time and time again. Now we have another opportunity here. It's not hydrofracking. You're not injecting some unknown chemicals, as was mentioned before, that was the real reason for banning hydrofracking and the impact to the aquifer with that. This is not the case. In fact, there was an added benefit with this of actually sequestering carbon dioxide, a greenhouse gas, underground by injecting it in and getting out the natural gas that we need for our everyday lives. That industry to grow and thrive in New York State is going to need low-cost energy for manufacturing, which is critically important. This is just one more block to doing things better because we want to get to perfect. Well, this utopian approach is a train wreck coming down the tracks. It's going to crush New York State. It's going to crush communities across New York State, economically devastating. And doing this on this today with absolutely no scientific review at all, you're all now the experts on whether this is feasible, safe, or not, hasn't even been looked into. And an opportunity to sequester a greenhouse gas. This is just so short-sighted and so emblematic of the whole energy plan that this state thinks they have. Thank you, Madam President. I vote no.
Senator Steck.
Thank you, Madam President. On the bill.
Senator Steck on the bill.
This is not hydrofracking. This is a completely different process. This is using carbon dioxide. I have a degree in chemical engineering. I've done some work in engineering in my life around energy. This bill is about turning our nose up at natural gas, period. This bill is not about the safety of this process or environmental impacts. This is night and day. This isn't even apples and oranges. This is acorns and coconuts. The difference between what's been proposed and the ban on hydrofracking. If we want to follow the science, I mean, maybe there's somebody in this room that knows more about chemistry than I do, but DEC has people that will do this. To deny DEC the opportunity to review this and come up with a permitting process because we don't like natural gas is arrogant and short-sighted. I'm opposed to this bill.
Thank you. Are there any other senators wishing to be heard? Seeing and hearing none, the debate is closed. Secretary will ring the bell. Senator Gineris.
President, we've agreed to restore this bill to the non-controversial calendar.
Okay. The bill has been restored to the non-controversial calendar. Read the last section.
Section 2 is actually taking effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Giannaris Kruger, Ortsu, Cousins, White.
Senator Harkam to explain his vote.
Thank you very much, Madam President. First, I'd like to thank Senator Webb for this legislation. I want to thank the Majority Leader, Andrea Stewart Cousins, for bringing it to the floor so rapidly. I fully support this bill. I want to just share a few comments based on what we heard during the debate and from our colleagues across the aisle, that fracking is somehow a boom in Pennsylvania, but there are extensive research studies talking about the harsh environmental and public health consequences fracking has had on the people of the state of Pennsylvania. We heard about the polluted aquifers. We've heard about low birth weights documented in studies, lung disease, asthma disease. So fracking has had adverse impacts, the trucking, the pipelines. This has certainly not been a boom to the public health of Pennsylvania, certainly not to the environment in terms of water quality and other issues. But to me, fracking was a bad policy when the governor, former governor, first by executive order, stopped fracking, when we then subsequently banned it by legislation. And it doesn't make sense to me to be pumping CO2 into the ground only to extract something that is 80 times more harmful to heating the planet, which is the methane in natural gas. Remember, methane is 80 times more potent of a greenhouse gas warming device or warming element than CO2 is. So this does not make sense to me. And finally, we talk about economically. The point I go back to time and time and time again. A kilowatt of clean energy coming from solar or wind is cheaper for the consumers in our districts. We want to talk about economic booms, economic benefits. Solar and wind are cheaper than carbon-based fuels.
Senator Harkam, how do you vote?
I vote aye. Thank you.
Senator Harkam to be recorded in the affirmative. Senator May to explain her vote.
Thank you, Madam President. I will start by endorsing everything that my colleague Senator Harkam said on the environmental and health problems associated with hydrofracking. But I also want to talk about the quality of life issues, because when New York was considering fracking, I went down to Pennsylvania to see what it did to communities there. And I visited rural communities that had once been bucolic and quiet and lovely places, and now had 24/7 big trucks just coming through, bringing the fracking liquids in and then carrying the materials out at the same time. Every little tiny bridge was just a nightmare of traffic congestion. The noise was unbelievable, and the companies that had leased the land had no restrictions. They would build their derricks right next to people's front doors, and the people who owned the land had no say in what the companies were doing. So fracking is not just an environmental nightmare, but it is a quality of life nightmare, and I am very grateful to Senator Webb for bringing this bill, and I vote aye.
Senator May to be recorded in the affirmative. Senator Hinchey to explain her vote.
Thank you, Madam President. One of my first jobs out of college was as a grassroots canvasser to actually ban fracking in the state of New York before the moratorium was put in place. And so while most people in their early 20s are making friends in their businesses and having, interesting conversations, every time I met a new person, we were talking about hydrofracking. And, just to frame what fracking is, it is the process of drilling down into the earth and then drilling horizontally for miles. And then in the case of hydrofracking, it was pumping hundreds of gallons of water at lightning speed through these tiny tunnels, fracturing the bedrock, destabilizing the earth, and often causing earthquakes. I have stood with people from the southern tier. I went to school out in Ithaca when this was happening 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I've stood with people who sold their mineral rights on their property and then saw their land completely devalued. I saw their lives upended after they were sold a dream of a quick way to make better cash. We rightfully, in the state of New York, banned the practice of hydrofracking. And now we hear today in this chamber that the same practice that we know to be dangerous, but switching it with CO2, supercritical CO2, not atmospheric CO2, those are different things. The concept of putting supercritical CO2 at high velocities through these tiny tunnels to fracture the bedrock again to extract more gas is somehow going to be safe. We know that's just not true. It's not the CO2 that's in the bottle machine. It is a completely different compound. And so I am incredibly proud that this body is bringing this bill to the floor to a vote. I thank our colleagues in the Assembly for passing, and I thank my colleague, Senator Webb and Senator Krueger, for spearheading this initiative, and I'm incredibly proud to vote aye on this bill. Thank you very much.
Senator Hinchey to be recorded in the affirmative. Senator Bareilles to explain his vote.
Thank you, Madam President. Just want to address some of the comments made about how these communities were transformed negatively by fracking in their areas. I would debate that in general, but I would also invite my colleagues to come to some of places in my district that are experiencing the negative impacts of industrial wind turbines. The community of Arkwright that was sold a bill of goods. The streets were going to be paved with gold because of all the money they were going to make off of wind turbines. And now they tell me that 24/7, it sounds like a jet that never lands over their house constantly. They can't sleep at night. People have had issues with sleeping. I've had farmers tell me that chickens are not laying eggs anymore because of the infrasound. So it's hypocritical to say that we're going to ban something that we have no idea about when we're not even willing to admit that there are problems with industrial wind turbines and solar panels. So once again, I vote no. Thank you.
Senator Bareilles to be recorded in the negative. Senator Krueger to explain her vote.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I was in and out during the debate, and so I don't want to be repeating anything that's already been said, so I just want to proudly vote yes and explain the science is clear. People can have their disagreements of other things going on in their communities and other things going on. Frankly, with energy, we had extensive debate about energy yesterday. This isn't about energy. This is a model that, if it was allowed to go forward, would be killing people, destroying land, killing agriculture. We know from our fights 10 years ago, the insurance industry immediately said, we're not going to insure any land that fracking goes on underneath, because we know how toxic it will be to everyone involved. And this is so much more dangerous, as I'm sure many people explained today. It's inconceivable that this would be allowed. And so I'm very glad that with our action today, because I'm quite sure the governor will sign this bill, we will ensure the protection of New Yorkers from yet another extremely, extremely dangerous process that we have no business allowing in any part of New York. I vote yes, Madam President.
Senator Krueger to be recorded in the affirmative. Senator Hoylman-Siegel to explain his vote.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to rise and join my colleagues in support of this bill and want to thank Senator Webb, particularly for her leadership. Just to point out that today there's been some evidence of climate change denialism on this floor. Earlier you heard members opposing board members to the MTA because they are opposed wholesale to congestion pricing. And now you hear our friends across the aisle opposing this new method of extracting fossil fuels. Our own State Department of Environmental Conservation has determined that by the 2030s, we will have sea level rise in parts of New York, including my district, up to 13 inches. 13 inches will mean that parts of my district will disappear. So we must do everything in our power to combat the use of fossil fuels. I strongly vote aye. Thank you, Senator Webb.
Senator Hoylman Siegel to be recorded in the affirmative. Senator Webb to explain her vote and to close.
Thank you, Madam President. So I appreciate, colleagues, comments and most certainly the debate, but I want to level set a little bit here. I was well involved on this issue way before coming into the Senate. And as someone who's born and raised in the Southern Tier, when hydrofracking started in our neighboring state of Pennsylvania, I met with residents and leaders there, and I will tell you that those issues with regards to health outcomes are very real. When you talk about exposure, the environmental hazards that lead to very real health implications and changes, as a representative of the Southern Tier, but more importantly, as a concerned citizen, I refuse to have my district, or quite frankly, any resident in the state of New York, to be a guinea pig for a practice to have a pilot that we know that CO2 mining is quite simply hydrofracking, but just called by a different name. We know, as evidence has demonstrated over many years of research, that this isn't an extreme approach with regards to a ban on hydrofracking. This is fueled by science, by research, and by real people's stories with regards to the impacts on their lives. In my opinion, there is no dollar sign or no amount of money that can cover the costs of long-term healthcare implications for these types of practices. And let's talk about what some of those health conditions are. Cardiovascular disease, COPD. For people who are suffering from asthma due to environmental toxins and things that they had no control over, what amount of money is good enough for them? And the answer is there is none. It is our responsibility as public officials to do all that we can to not only to protect the environment, but to protect the health and well-being of our residents here in the state of New York. Now, one of my colleagues pointed out with regards to CO2 and that we need to have more opportunities to study. And one of the things that we do know with regards to CO2 is that once it hits, and I want to make sure I quote this properly, that CO2 converts to carbonic acid in the presence of moisture, making it corrosion prone. Now, you don't need to be a scientist to know that corrosive materials are bad. And so when you talk about the impacts and the implications of this new proposed practice, again, hydrofracking just being called by a different name, it is our responsibility to do all that we can to ensure not only the safety of our environment and the health of our residents now, but also for the future. Madam President, I proudly vote aye, and I thank all of my colleagues, Senator Krueger for also helping to lead this fight for many years, and also Senator Harkin, our Senate Majority Leader, and of course, the bill sponsors in the Assembly, Assemblymember Kellis, and Assemblymember Lupardo. Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Webb to be recorded in the affirmative. Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 541, those senators voted in the negative are Senators Ashby, Borrello, Kanzler, Fitzpatrick, Gallivan, Griffo, Hellman, Lanza, Matera, Murray, Oberacker, O'Mara, Ort, Rhodes, Steck, Tedisco, Weber, and White. Ayes 45, nays 17.
The bill is passed. Senator Serrano, that completes the reading of the calendar.
Thank you, Madam President. On page 15, I offer the following amendments to calendar number 269 by Senator Mannion. Senate print number 3141, I ask that the said bill retain its place on third reading calendar.
The amendments are received and the bill will retain its place on a third reading calendar. Senator Serrano.
Is there any further business at the desk?
There is no further business at the desk.
I move to adjourn until tomorrow, Thursday, March 21st at 11 a.m.
On motion, the Senate stands adjourned until Thursday, March 21st at 11 a.m.